She was nibbling the crust of a sandwich like it was treasure stolen from the gods, sitting on the edge of a cargo bench with bare blue feet dangling. The crumbs stuck to her lips, and the way she glared at me, like I might take it back, was equal parts adorable and tragic. Most people on the station walked right past her, muttering things like stray or cargo mistake. Me? I saw a princess, a weird, blue, shoeless princess who apparently thought bread was the pinnacle of cuisine. Easy, I said, crouching down so my vest straps didn't creak too much. I'm not going to steal your, uh, fine dining experience. I motioned at the bread in her hands. Though for the record, that's not how humans usually eat carbs. There's sauces, fillings, sometimes other humans hand feed you, but that's another conversation entirely. She blinked up at me, her silver white hair falling into her big violet eyes. Behind her, two lanky green aliens, the kind that looked like they'd faint if they saw a push-up, watched from inside their containment pen. They were clearly her people, but none of them were rushing to offer her more than a glance. I am not little, she said between bites, her voice calm but carrying that self-important edge royalty probably have when they're 5 seconds from ordering your beheading. And I am not eating like a dog. What is a dog? It's, well, complicated, I said, grinning. They're like humans, but fuzzier, cuter, and slightly less dangerous in bed. Her chewing paused, and she tilted her head. Why would being in bed be dangerous? I bit my lip to stop the laugh. That's, also complicated. Let's call it a cultural difference. The guards at the far end were already side-eyeing me, probably wondering why I was talking to the excess cargo instead of just logging her into the system. But there was something about the way she held that stale bread with such care, like it was a diamond, like no one had given her anything in a long time. You got a name, princess? I asked. Her small shoulders squared. Tivra of the third ring of Yuldahar. She said it like she was announcing a warship entering orbit. Well, Tivra, I said, extending my hand. I'm Kyle, and I think you and I are about to become friends. She stared at my hand for a long moment, then stuffed the last bit of bread in her mouth, brushed her palms together, and instead of shaking my hand, she put her tiny blue palm on my cheek. You're warm, she said simply. And in that moment, I decided two things. Someone was going to pay for leaving her like this. I was not going to be responsible for explaining to her what dangerous in bed really meant, at least not until she was old enough to appreciate the punchline. But I knew this was how it started. The kind of trouble you don't escape from, the kind that finds you again and again. And if you've ever had a little alien princess look at you like you just pulled her out of the dark, you'd understand why I didn't walk away. And this, my friends, is where I made the single best and most idiotic decision of my life. Tevra followed me like a suspicious cat, close enough to watch my every move, far enough that she could bolt if I tried something human. The station corridor hummed with engine noise and stale air, the kind that smelled faintly of ozone and overcooked protein packs. You live here? She asked, eyeing the metal walls like they might bite her. I work here, I corrected. Living here would mean I voluntarily sleep on a mattress that smells like hydraulic fluid. I'm not that brave. She wrinkled her small, perfect nose. Hydraulic fluid smells like your face. I stopped mid-step. What? She shrugged, a little smirk twitching her lips. It's a compliment. I glanced down at her. You've got a very strange idea of flirting. I am not flirting, she said flatly. I am stating facts. Oh, sweetheart, I muttered under my breath. That's the most dangerous kind of flirting. The maintenance bay I called home was barely big enough for two people to stand side by side. She stepped inside, took one look at the cot, the half-disassembled plasma rifle on the desk, and the pile of laundry that could qualify as a geological formation. This is where you live, she said, as if I'd just shown her a cave with a dead animal in it. Technically, I crash here between jobs, I said, tossing my vest onto the cot. Home is wherever I'm not getting shot at. She wandered over to the desk, ignoring the rifle and picking up a cracked mug. What does this say? She asked, turning it so I could read the faded letters. I smirked. It says, world's okayest soldier. She tilted her head. So you are only okay? Listen, I'm better than okay, I said, stepping closer. I'm the guy who just gave you the last piece of bread I had on me. She blinked, processing that. Then softly, why? Because, I said, leaning on the desk, princesses shouldn't have to eat scraps like dogs. She went quiet. Her violet eyes locked on mine, and for a second the room didn't feel so small. Then she broke the silence. If I am a princess, then you must be my guard. Oh no, I said quickly. I don't do titles. I do. Freelance life-saving. Occasionally for tips. She ignored that. You're my guard. It is decided. That's not how I started, but she raised a tiny hand. It is decided. I sighed. You're a handful, you know that? Her smirk widened. If that is a human double meaning, then yes. Maybe one day you'll find out exactly how. I almost choked. Tivra, you can't just say things like that to a man who hasn't had a date in 3 standard cycles. Then maybe, she said, completely unfazed, you should stop making me eat bread and start feeding me something better. She didn't know it, but she just issued a challenge, and I was already stupid enough to take it. If you think a man can resist a bossy alien princess with a smart mouth and big eyes, you've never met me. The first problem with feeding a princess wasn't finding food, it was surviving her commentary about it. I'd managed to barter with a trader in the lower docks, trading 2 plasma clips and a borrowed station access card for a hot meal. When I came back, Tivra was sitting cross-legged on my cot, dismantling my rifle with surgical precision. Hey, I barked. That's not a toy. She didn't even look up. If it were a toy, it would be more interesting. This is crude. Crude? I said, setting the food on the desk. That's a military-grade plasma repeater. Well, was. And it saved my life more than once. Then, she said sweetly, you must be very easy to kill. I rubbed my temples. You've been here less than a day and you're already insulting my weapons, my home, and my... Okay, technically you called me warm, so my face gets a pass. She finally looked over at the steaming plate I'd set down. What is that? Station curry, I said. Don't ask what's in it, just trust me. She sniffed it, frowned, then took a bite, and immediately made a noise that was absolutely not legal in half the galaxy. I nearly dropped into a chair. You like it? Her eyes fluttered shut for a moment before she swallowed. This, she said, pointing with her spoon, is better than being alive. That's an alarming metric, but I'll take it. She took another bite, then eyed me. You are staring. I'm monitoring your reaction, I said, sitting down opposite her. You know, for culinary research purposes. You're wondering, she said between mouthfuls, if I make those sounds in other situations. I blinked. Tivra, she smirked. Humans are easy to read. I stopped, deciding to let her have that one. Anyway, I figured we could talk about what happens next. You can't just stay here forever. Why not? Because, I said, leaning forward, someone's going to come looking for you. And when they do, they won't be bringing flowers. She put her spoon down slowly. I know. That's why you're my guard. Tivra, you will protect me, Kyle, she said in that same calm, dangerous tone she'd used when declaring herself a princess. And in return, I will make your life interesting. Interesting how? I asked warily. Her smile was small but sharp. I have many talents. Some of them are diplomatic, some of them less so. That was the moment I realized I was already in over my head, because the way she said it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise. And for the first time since meeting her, I wasn't sure if I was her rescuer or her next project. Spoiler, I was both. Tivra had a talent for making trouble feel like an adventure. By the next station cycle, word had already spread through the lower docks. Kyle, the world's okayest soldier, was shacking up with a tiny, blue, sharp-tongued alien who spoke like she owned half the galaxy, which, to be fair, she might have. I tried to keep things low profile. Tivra had other plans. She was perched on my workbench, swinging her legs as I patched a hull breach report, when she said, Kale, I require entertainment. I didn't even look up. Try not dismantling my weapons for fun. Not that kind of entertainment, she said, smirking. I want to see humans in their natural habitat. I raised an eyebrow. And what exactly do you think my natural habitat is? Somewhere noisy, she said. Somewhere with drinks or dancing. I have read about human dancing. It sounds inefficient but pleasurable. You mean a bar? Yes, take me to one. Now. I groaned, but an hour later we were weaving through the neon chaos of Dockside's most infamous watering hole. I kept one hand near my holster. She, meanwhile, looked like she was strolling through a royal banquet, except this royal banquet smelled like cheap liquor and fried mystery meat. When a group of dock hands started eyeing her, I stepped closer. Careful, I warned them. She bites. Tivra shot me a sly look. Only if invited. I nearly choked on my drink. Princess... What? She asked innocently. You humans have so many double meanings. I am learning them quickly. And she was. Too quickly. Within half an hour she had the bartender teaching her how to mix something called a fusion burn, and two mechanics from Base 6 were arguing over who got to escort her back when the night was over. I made it clear neither of them were qualified for the job. When we finally left, she was holding my arm, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. Her steps were light, her smirk satisfied. You enjoyed yourself, I said. I did, she agreed, and so did you. You just don't want to admit it. I gave her a sidelong look. You're dangerous, Tivra. She stopped in the corridor, turning to face me fully. Good, so are you. That's why this will work. This? I asked. Us, she said simply. You protect me, I keep you alive. And maybe if you're very good... She leaned in just enough that I felt the warmth of her breath. I'll tell you all the other things I'm good at. I swallowed hard. You're going to be the death of me. Probably, she said, slipping her hand into mine. But it will be fun. And just like that, I knew I wasn't letting her go. Not to her people, not to the guards, not to anyone. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was my princess. If you've ever thought saving someone was the end of the story, you've never met Tivra. That's where it starts. And if you want to know just how far I went for her, well, stick around. Things are about to get a lot more interesting.